The following is a non-profit fan-based translation of another fan-created work of fiction. Mobile Suit Gundam. Advanced Operation is owned by Sunrise Entertainment, Bandai Entertainment, and Family Soft Koei-sa, Lightdeed. Support the official release of both the game and the other works of the original author. Chapter 10. After crossing the Mediterranean and making its way to Europe, the Ilnaid rested its damaged wings in the mountains near Barcelona. Beep, beep, beep. On the Ilnaid's monitor, the approach of a friendly transport aircraft was displayed. Though displayed might be an overstatement, it was more like a symbolic representation of the lasers emitted by individual aircraft. It was less sophisticated than radar, but for an amateur captain like Kelly, it was a simple and easy-to-understand visual aid. Jessica Fletcher, seated at the communication station, responded to the call from the friendly transport aircraft, a Medea Kai. Her neat, clean-cut features and confident responses were pleasant to the ear. "The supply unit is requesting a rendezvous point," Jessica said, turning to Kelly. "Got it. Tell them to meet at point C7. Medea Transport, do you copy? Please rendezvous at point C7. Kelly listened to Jessica's surprisingly professional response, recalling that Adele had felt something off about her, but he quickly dismissed the thought. They had to prepare to receive the supplies. When the Medea Kai arrived, it was clear that it had taken heavy damage. One of the transports was even billowing black smoke. Adele, who had been waiting on a forklift to help unload the supplies, was at a loss for words at the pitiful sight. "Only 2 transports? They got hit pretty hard, didn't they? Are they okay?" The fate of a transport unit without combat capabilities, after being attacked by the enemy, was nothing short of tragic. The hatch of the Medea Kai opened, and an officer who appeared to be the unit commander stepped out, approaching acting Captain Kelly. "Major Giovanna Dolce, commander of the 205th Supply Battalion," she introduced herself with a salute. The female officer, who was past her prime but still had a petite, round face with a charming demeanor, couldn't hide her exhaustion after the attack. "I'm sorry. We were ambushed by enemy mobile suits. Our escort unit was wiped out and we lost 3 Medea transports." "So, does that mean the supplies are a no-go?" "No, the new mobile suits and peripheral equipment are mostly intact. But the pilots..." Kelly could only remain silent as Major Dolce spoke apologetically. Even though only 2 transports made it, he was grateful they had arrived at all. However, the lack of replacement pilots was a tough blow, both as a commander and as an instructor at the flight academy. He still had to send his students into battle. Kelly glanced at Adele and the others helping with the unloading. To Kelly, Adele and Raisa were still students, no matter the situation. Will we be able to get any personnel reinforcements? At this point, it's hard to say. You're familiar with the Londo Bell unit, right? The new type unit with a Muro Ray? Yes, whether they're new types or not, their formation has left the Federation with little to spare. Major Dolce mentioned the Federation's lack of resources, but the truth was that it was more about the faction within the Federation, led by General Manov and others from the old AEUG. Much of the Earth Federation government was hoping for a moderate war that would stimulate the economy, and they were reluctant to provoke Zeon by establishing the Londo Bell unit. Pushing for the formation of Londo Bell meant making concessions to other groups in other areas, which in turn made it difficult to support the Ilnid. "So we're on our own to reach the central base, huh?" Kelly sighed, pressing his fingers to his temples. "Hey, Dolce, you really got hit hard, huh?" After parting with acting Captain Kelly, a familiar face, Quaker called out to her. They had known each other for a long time. Quaker, as always, was dressed in a dirty jumpsuit, looking every bit the mechanic. A pair of work gloves stuck out haphazardly from his pocket. "It's the first time I've been ambushed like that. I thought I was going to die. Be a little kinder, will you?" She tried to joke, but it felt a bit inappropriate, given that her subordinates had died in the attack. "Well, you managed to deliver the Zeta Gundam safely. I won't complain." As Quaker spoke, he knocked on a container. A young lieutenant, who had just finished moving the container with a forklift, exclaimed in surprise, "Wait, is this the Zeta Gundam?" The young lieutenant jumped down from the forklift and stood next to Quaker. With his gray hair, he looked like a fine young man. "Is it really the Zeta Gundam? I mean, Major..." "Before you call me Major, you were about to call me Ma'am, weren't you? Let's correct that first." In truth, it had probably just taken him a moment to read her rank insignia, but Dolce couldn't resist teasing him a little. "What? No, I wasn't going to call you Ma'am." As expected, he panicked and denied it. Dolce found it amusing. "Ha ha ha! Ma'am? Nah, Adele, this is a granny we're talking about." "Hey, Quaker, you're 4 years older than me, you know." "Yeah, I'm 40. "Wait, really? Quaker, you're only 40? This time a surprised voice came from another forklift. "Hold on, Raisa. What do you mean, only 40? Raisa, the female lieutenant who had spoken, covered her mouth, realizing she'd said too much. Dolce almost said, "Being young is nice," but she held back. That phrase was cursed. It would instantly add 2 years to her age. "If Quaker's 40 and you're 4 years younger than him, then..." Adele, the lieutenant who had been trying to calculate her age, was stopped with a flick to the forehead. Thwack. "Okay, Adele, you don't need to pry into a woman's age." Dolce smiled sweetly at Adele, who was rubbing his forehead. "Life is long if you don't die in battle. Being called a granny in your mid-30s is just too much. Though, to be honest, I only made it to Major because people around me kept dying, and we were short on hands." Dolce laughed lightly as she spoke, but she had shaved a year or 2 off her actual age. "Besides, as someone who's been diligently paying into Social Security, I can't afford to die in a place like this." The 2 young officers didn't seem to fully grasp her words, but they would understand someday. Of course, they'd have to survive first. As the Medea Kai moved out of the Ilneed's radar range, Adele and the others watched until the monitor went blank. "Looks like the Federation's abandoned us," Adele muttered. "That's not true. General Manov is still with us and we just got resupplied," Raisa retorted, though her words were more to convince herself than Adele. "Both of you, that's enough. We still have to make it to the central base," Kelly chided. Beep, beep, beep. At the same time, an alarm sounded and Claire rushed to the monitoring station. "Enemy mobile suit unit approaching. 2 minutes until contact. Oh, we're also getting an emergency message from the mobile suit deck. Patch it through." Before Kelly could finish his order, Quaker's frantic face appeared on the monitor. "Hey, who's piloting the new Zeta Gundam? The maintenance isn't even done yet." "What? Who's in the Zeta Gundam? Burner?" With a loud whoosh, Jessica Fletcher appeared on the monitor, already in her pilot suit. "I'm heading out first. Cover me." Without waiting for a response, Jessica launched the Zeta Gundam from the Ilneid, leaving only a contrail behind. Why is Jessica piloting it? "Doesn't matter, it's an emergency. Raisa, you guys launch too now." Chapter 11. Everyone was shocked and panicked when Jessica sortied in the Zeta Gundam. No one questioned why she had already completed her preparations in the Zeta Gundam before the radar even detected the enemy. In fact, by the time Adele and the others scrambled to follow her, the battle had already begun, leaving no time to ponder such things. Moreover, when they finally arrived at the battlefield, they witnessed Jessica's overwhelming skill in mobile suit combat, rendering any such questions irrelevant. Though Adele had never seen this mobile suit before, the monitor displayed the name Stuka as Jessica's Zeta Gundam effortlessly outmaneuvered multiple enemy units, causing them to explode one after another. "Amazing." Adele's muttered words said it all. For Sinclair, who had led the assault, this turn of events was a major miscalculation. While they needed to keep 1 or 2 Medea transport ships intact to guide them to the Pegasus-class ship, it was unfortunate that one of those Medeas happened to be carrying the Zeta Gundam. To make matters worse, it seemed they had also inadvertently provided an exceptionally skilled pilot. We're pulling back for now. Meyer, go ahead. Geisen, cover the rear." Sinclair quickly decided to retreat. It was frustrating, but the Pegasus-class ship's mobile suits were beginning to arrive on the battlefield one after another. Though they had been humiliated by a single Zeta Gundam, retreat was their only option. "Who are you? Your mobile suit skills are extraordinary. This isn't normal." The first to confront Jessica upon her return to the Ilneid was Raisa. She pounced on Jessica as she tried to leave the mobile suit deck, interrogating her with a raised voice. Jessica had removed only the upper half of her pilot suit, tying it around her waist, while Raisa's black tank top revealed her healthy shoulders. Raisa's intense emotions made her movements exaggerated, and with each question, her ample chest swayed beneath the tank top. "You're not a Federation soldier, are you?" In contrast to Raisa's heightened emotions, Jessica remained calm, blinking slowly as if considering how to respond. "Hey!" Annoyed by Jessica's composed demeanor, Raisa took a step forward, ready to grab her, but Adele quickly caught her arm and held her back. Though surprised by how slender and soft Raisa's arm felt, Adele took over the questioning. "Jessica Fletcher. That's a fake name, right? I think it's from an old detective drama. The protagonist was a mystery novelist with that name." Adele paused there. "There's something you're hiding, isn't there?" Facing Adele's direct gaze, Jessica sighed in resignation and loosened the collar of her pilot suit. "Could I speak with Brigadier General Manov?" "Huh?" Adele and Raisa exchanged glances. Instead of answering their question, Jessica had posed one of her own, and its implications left them stunned. Adele turned back to Jessica. "Jessica, are you saying you're the one Sinclair is after?" Jessica nodded quietly. It was decided that the four of them, Adele, Raisa, Kelly, and Jessica, would visit Brigadier General Manov's hospital room. When they opened the door, the military doctor offered a few words of caution to Manov, who was lying in bed, before bowing and leaving the room. "Serrana Karn, Deputy Foreign Minister, correct?" "Yes." The woman who answered bore no resemblance to the gentle Jessica Fletcher. She was sharper, more refined, like the cold water of winter. Serrana's Zeon uniform, a red officer's attire, accentuated her severity and coolness. Adele glanced at her, wondering whether her gentle demeanor or her commanding presence as a Zeon leader was her true nature. But it was an unanswerable question. Dressed in full Zeon regalia, Serena responded and then took a seat on a small round chair beside Manov's bed, as if paying her respects. Kelly and the others stood behind her. "Deputy Foreign Minister Serrana Karn, it seems we've both been humiliated. Indeed, while we've been idle, the situation has been steadily deteriorating into danger. I hear the Zeon hardliners are rallying around that Char." Raisa and Kelly, who were observing the conversation, couldn't hide their surprise at the mention of Char's name. But Char's supposed to be dead. At the very least, he went missing during the Maelstrom operation. Serena turned and shook her head sadly. "Char is not dead, nor is he missing. He's alive, and he's aiming to become the new leader of Neo-Zeon." For Adele, this was shocking news, but as someone who leaned toward the space noids, it was also understandable. "Char has given up on the AEUG. He believes they can't reform the corrupt Federation government. He thinks he has to do it himself, which is why he's reorganizing Neo-Zeon." Serrana agreed with that assessment. "That's correct, but Char is dangerous. He wants to purge Earth. No one has the right to do such a thing. Char told me, humanity has reached its limit. But what will happen to the dying Earth if he carries out this purge?" Adele, who had felt some sympathy for Char, was at a loss for words. But Raisa spoke up, echoing his thoughts. "There's no way it could endure." Serrana nodded at Raisa and Adele. "And after a decade since the 1-year war, society is exhausted and lacks the strength to create a new era. Even if Char uses force to carry out his purge, it won't lead to human innovation. Even if it did, becoming new types wouldn't guarantee a peaceful and prosperous society. If that were possible, my sister Haemon wouldn't have started a war or died." It was a sad truth, but it was the reality. In the end, all that will remain after the purge are the nameless corpses of countless people. That's why we must stop Char. Above all, a world where death is so commonplace is abnormal. When Serrana finished speaking, silence fell. It was a sign that Adele and Raisa had understood her words. Serrana turned back to Brigadier General Manov. Brigadier General Manov, there's still time to prevent the Zeon hardliners' plans. What's your basis for that? Char has only gained the support of a fraction of the hardliners. He hasn't yet secured full control of Zeon. That's why he's calling himself Casval Deacon, claiming to be the son of Zeon Deacon, the rightful leader, to gain the people's support. Char Deacon. That's an unfamiliar name, so he's aiming for a military dictatorship under the guise of democracy. Yes. But if we can establish peace now between the Federation and the Zeon moderates, the hardliners' support base among the people will weaken. The people are tired of fighting. After listening to Serrana, Manov quietly closed his eyes. The exhausted people, hoping for a way out, would seek a young leader and accept the temporary spectacle of war. Having lived a long life, Manov could see things that Serrana Karn, a 20-something deputy foreign minister, could not. But Serrana Karn had declared that a society where so many people die is abnormal. It was a naive statement, but it was absolutely correct. If so, there was only one thing to do. Slowly opening his eyes, Manov turned his head on the pillow to face Serena. With a theatrical pause, like a kabuki actor striking a pose, he spoke with a strength that belied his severe injuries. Deputy Foreign Minister, I will assist you to the best of my ability. Captain Kelly, contact the Central European base in my name. Arrange for negotiations to begin as soon as they arrive. Thank you. Serrana bowed deeply. Meanwhile, Sinclair, who had been ushered into General Detour's private quarters, stood at attention, acutely aware of his discomfort. In the dim light of a floor lamp, General Detour sat deeply in a leather sofa resembling a tub chair, pouring wine into a baccarat glass. The label on the wine bottle read, Domaine Leroy, though Sinclair had no idea of its value. He could only imagine it was expensive. To struggle against a single ship, you've fallen far, Major Sinclair. I have no words to defend myself. Sinclair honestly felt ashamed of his 2 failed attempts to attack the Pegasus-class ship. But why did you summon me back so suddenly, sir? Surely not to relieve me of my pursuit. Don't be so hasty. With his wineglass in hand, Detour admonished Sinclair. That area is under the jurisdiction of Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Newman. He's quite on edge since you arrived from space. I see. Don't you get it? Being straightforward alone will only get you so far as a frontline commander, but never mind that for now. General Detour took a sip of his wine. I need you to go as an envoy to a Federation base later. We've acquired something interesting. You should take a look too. Apparently, it involves an old acquaintance of yours. He handed Sinclair a single disc. Chapter 12. Hamburg, officially known as the free and Hanseatic city of Hamburg, was a metropolis where the Ulster Lake lay at its heart, surrounded by refined, elegant architecture and lush green parks. It was one of the few cities left unscathed by the One-Year War. After the war, when the Earth Federation's European Central Command Base was established at the Fuhlsbüttel International Airport on its outskirts, Hamburg became not just the military and economic hub of northern Germany, but of all Europe. Bathed in the glow of the setting sun, the assault landing ship Ilnid rested at the European Central Command Base. To Adele, the crimson-stained Ilnid looked like a wounded Pegasus folding its wings to rest. A gentle breeze swept by. Ah! A voice caught his attention, and he turned to see Raisa holding down her long hair. Her dark blue-black locks were dyed red by the sunset, her lips glimmering in the fading light. Seeing her like this, so different from usual, Adele felt his heart stir. As the wind died down, he watched, mesmerized, as she combed her tousled hair with her fingers. What? Raisa tilted her head slightly, noticing Adele's gaze. At that moment, Adele realized for the first time, I'm in love with this girl. So, what is it? Just thinking. We finally made it to the European Central Command Base. Good work. Yeah, good work. I hope things go well for Serrana. As she spoke, Raisa glanced toward the command building, trying to hide her flushed cheeks from Adele's gaze. In early winter, Hamburg was blanketed in snow, and the command building's roof was no exception, now glowing red under the sunset. The structure, built in the same neo-Renaissance style as the City Hall, was designed to preserve Hamburg's scenic beauty as an eco-friendly city. Its Baroque arches and red brickwork were stunning, making it hard to believe this was a military base, but that was the Earth Federation Army for you. It's been a long fight, but I guess our job here is done, Adele mused. Raisa simply replied, Yeah. The conference room where Serrana Karn, Deputy Foreign Minister, had been led was as opulent as the command building's exterior, decorated in neo-Renaissance style. Federation officers sat in rows, listening intently to Serrana's words, some attentively, some skeptically, others with outright disdain. But despite their mixed reactions, she had managed to shape the discussion into something resembling negotiations. Do you understand now? To avoid the worst-case scenario for Earth, we must act swiftly. We grasp the gravity of the situation, but given the circumstances, if what she says is true, shouldn't we consider countermeasures immediately? One senior staff officer hesitated, but another cut in, and several officials nodded in agreement. Serrana's ultimate goal was to secure a comprehensive peace treaty with the Earth Federation government and prevent the outbreak of a second Neo-Zeon war. However, rather than pushing for an immediate treaty, she focused on explaining the current situation, how Zeon's hardliners had seized power and the new dangers that they posed. In negotiations, presenting detailed terms too soon often led to petty disputes, derailing any chance of agreement. Even a vague consensus was still a consensus. And now, the tide was turning in Serrana's favor. The Federation officers murmured among themselves, discussing her proposal, until an enlisted soldier abruptly entered. "Excuse me," the soldier whispered into a senior officer's ear. The officer's brow twitched slightly. After listening, he dismissed the soldier with a wave, took a deep breath, and locked eyes with Serrana. Deputy Foreign Minister Serrana Karn, I apologize, but we'll need more time to deliberate. This isn't a matter we can decide so easily. For Serrana, this was a non-negotiable refusal. Understood. Please consider it carefully. None of us, neither you nor I, have much time left. Once she confirmed the officer's nod, Serrana stood and left the room. After a brief recess, a lone Zeon soldier entered the conference room in Serrana's place. Despite being deep in enemy territory, the man carried himself with unwavering dignity, not the arrogance of youth, but the bearing of a seasoned officer. You must be Major Sinclair. Sinclair responded with only a curt, Sir? We've heard from your superior, General Detour. Something about acquiring something interesting? I believe I know what you wish to ask. But once you see this, little explanation will be needed. Its value speaks for itself. From his briefcase, Sinclair produced a disc. A recording of our leader, Lord Shar Aznable's speech. What, Char? The name sent shockwaves through the room. Sinclair suppressed a smirk, making no effort to calm the uproar as he played the recording. My brethren fighting on Earth, I am Char Aznable, as the heir to my father Zeon Dakun's will, as the rightful leader of Neo-Zeon. I stand before you now. For the sovereignty of space colonists that Zeon Dakun envisioned, Neo-Zeon stands at a new turning point. Join me, my comrades. Lend me your strength, for the glory of... It was a brief address, delivered alongside orders to Zeon forces still on Earth. The Red Comet intends to seize full control of Zeon? As the recording ended, murmurs of confusion spread among the Federation officers. A ritual of processing the sudden shift in events. Char Aznable had once fought under the alias Quattro Bahina, with the anti-ETH Union group, battling both the Titans and Haman Khan's Neo-Zeon. At the Grip's war's end, his mobile suit was destroyed, and he was declared missing, presumed dead. After his disappearance, the AEUG was absorbed into the Earth Federation forces, becoming a force for internal reform. Thus, the officers were stunned not just by Char's survival, but by his betrayal, rallying Neo-Zeon remnants against the very Federation he had once helped reshape. For men who lived only for power within the system, this was incomprehensible. But Char declared an honorable retreat to space. What does this mean? Exactly what it sounds like. We seek to avoid unnecessary conflict and return to space. But Deputy Minister Serrana Khan warned of a large-scale Earth purge? Another officer interjected, but Sinclair cut him off. She has already been dismissed by the new regime. She holds no authority. Her words are nothing but the ravings of a scheming fox. If you're being misled by her, you'll be nothing but a laughing stock. I see. The retreat to space is also the will of General Detour. Sinclair invoked Detour's name deliberately. To these officers, Char Aznable was an enigma, but General Detour was a known quantity, a pragmatic opportunist with deep ties to the Federation. They knew Detour would never surrender his vested interests unless absolutely necessary. If even he was willing to abandon Earth for space, then Char's orders must be legitimate. Chapter 13. After the previous meeting, Serrana Karn, who had requested time for further discussion, found herself waiting alone in a private room that had been designated as a break room. Time tends to pass slowly when you're waiting. This is something that those who live intensely feel most acutely, but no one can speed up the hands of a clock. Serrana, with time on her hands, glanced around the room. She noticed the elegant teakwood interior, complete with a decorative mantelpiece. "My sister would love this room," she murmured with a small chuckle. "Haman, I could never bring myself to like your way of life, but it's clear that the Earth Federation is no better. The conservatives, whether in Zeon or the Federation, are all the same. The Zeon hardliners are only interested in seizing power, and the Federation's high officials are only concerned with maintaining their authority. They only see things through the lens of power." Of course, as the Deputy Foreign Minister, Serrana fully understood the necessity of these dynamics and used them as bargaining chips in negotiations. However, she continued to argue that such a mindset alone could not create an environment where people could thrive in this era. As long as people remained trapped in the power structure, they would forget the essence of human life, Serrana believed. That's why Char is dangerous. Char is not a foolish man who is only interested in the acquisition of power. He is a capable man who can use power as a means to advance his own ideals. But Char, who advocates for the reform of Earth's environment and humanity, is a man who can only see things from a macro perspective. He lacks the micro-level understanding of people's daily lives. It would be easy to explain this by Char's childhood circumstances, his father's assassination and his subsequent exile from the nation. But if we were to use that reasoning, Serrana herself had her own share of family troubles. As a child, her older sister, Marlene, was taken as a concubine by Dazzle Zabi. During her teenage years, she lived a life of escape in the asteroid belt, where her father, Maharaja Khan, died under suspicious circumstances that resembled assassination. As an adult, she found herself in political conflict with her older sister, Haman. Family circumstances are just excuses. A man lacking a sense of balance. That was Serrana's assessment of Char. I must somehow reach a negotiation before Char seizes control of the Zeon hardliners. Serrana glanced at the clock. Even for someone waiting, this was taking too long. Just as a faint sense of unease crept over her, there was a knock at the door, and it opened. "Hey, sorry to keep you waiting, Deputy Foreign Minister Serrana Karn. Or should I call you the former Deputy Foreign Minister?" Beyond the open door stood high-ranking officials of the Earth Federation, accompanied by the worst possible uninvited guest Serrana could have imagined. "Major Sinclair, what is this?" Sinclair and the Federation officials stood side by side as if they were old acquaintances. "Finally we meet, Serrana Karn. Too bad for you, things have changed quite a bit in space. Your fate is sealed." "Don't tell me Char has already taken full control of the military." "Ha ha ha, that's exactly it." Sinclair let out a triumphant laugh. It was a crude attitude he had never shown before, clearly elated. Gerald Sinclair had a close relationship with Char Aznable. Back when Axis was still in the asteroid belt, during the civil war caused by the Hardliners' rebellion, Sinclair had supported Char and even infiltrated the rebel base with him. They were comrades, to say the least. Now that Shar had taken full control, it was no wonder Sinclair was excited. Shh. Now let's get going, former Minister Karn. With a click, Serrana was handcuffed by the Federation MPs in response to Sinclair's words. Flanked by MPs armed with machine guns, Serrana had no choice but to walk. She had lost. General Manoff, you're looking much better. Adele started the engine of the military jeep and greeted Acting Captain Kelly as he sat down next to him. When they left the hospital room where General Manoff was receiving treatment, it was already dark, and Adele turned on the jeep's headlights. He's got incredible willpower. The doctors say he still needs to rest, but he's determined to return to the Ilneid as soon as possible. Although his wounds had only just begun to heal, the situation was on the brink of war or peace with Zeon. General Manoff was the only one who could navigate this crisis. Even if they wanted to stop him from overexerting himself, it was impossible under the current circumstances. Acting Captain Kelly. What's that? Adele pointed at a brightly lit transport plane in the darkness as he drove. The plane was a VTOL model, not uncommon, but it was unusual to see a civilian aircraft at the European Central Military Base. That's strange. Let's take a detour. Feeling uneasy, Kelly nodded, and Adele drove the jeep toward the transport plane. As they approached, Adele slowed down and carefully observed the plane. Sir, look! Adele shouted as he spotted Deputy Foreign Minister Serrana being escorted by Federation MPs at the foot of the plane's ramp. The scene, illuminated by the lights, created an eerie contrast. Adele drove the jeep to block their path, and Kelly jumped out before the vehicle came to a complete stop. Hey, wait! What are you planning to do with the minister? It's a decision from the top. We're handing her over to Zeon. The MPs, clearly annoyed by the sudden appearance of Kelly and Adele, spoke bluntly. What? That's ridiculous. That's how it is, Captain. Don't get in the way. A Zeon officer pushed past the MPs and stood in front of Kelly and Adele. You're Sinclair. Ha ha ha. Nice to finally meet you, Captain Kelly. Sinclair laughed arrogantly and looked down at Kelly. I'd love to chat about Odessa, Barcelona, and all the battles we've fought, but unfortunately we're in a hurry. Sinclair roughly grabbed Serrana's shoulder and pushed her toward the transport plane. I won't let you do as you please. As Serrana stumbled, a deep voice in the jeep's headlights cut through the darkness. Everyone turned to see General Manoff standing in their way, silhouetted by the powerful headlights. Adele and the others had just visited him, and he was supposed to be in no condition to stand. Indeed, General Manoff was leaning on a cane, barely able to support himself. But the aura of authority and determination emanating from his silhouette was overwhelming. The term fierce guardian was an apt description. His muscular frame, visible through the gaps in his coat, was wrapped in bandages, but it was clear that he was a man of formidable strength, further enhancing his imposing presence. You there, this handover is cancelled under my authority, he barked at the MPs escorting Serrana. That senile commander, can't even tell friend from foe. Cancel it, cancel it. The MPs hesitated, caught between the orders of the officer who had commanded the handover and the higher authority of General Manoff. In the end, they yielded to the general's force. With a click, they removed Serrana's handcuffs and pushed her toward Adele. Their attitude made it clear they wanted no part in this trouble. What? The handover was agreed upon, Sinclair protested to the MPs, but his complaints fell on deaf ears. That's how it is, Sinclair. After all, it was just a verbal order. Tch, that old fool of a general is meddling again. Sinclair glared at General Manoff, but the general remained unfazed. Fine, change of plans. Call the Gao above. Meyer, Geisen, prepare to receive her. Sinclair ran up the ramp of the transport plane and quickly took off. The vertical takeoff of the plane created a gust of wind, causing Serrana to stumble and fall to her knees. Serrana, are you okay? Adele reached out to Serrana, who was rubbing her wrists where the handcuffs had been. Yes, thank you. But more importantly, enemy mobile suits are descending. We need to get back to the Ilneid quickly. Chapter 14. The battle ended abruptly. Shortly after Sinclair escaped the base in a transport aircraft, a Gao attack carrier invaded from low altitude, and a mixed force of Stukas and Gaffs attacked the Central European Warzone base. However, as Adele and the Ilnid mobile suit unit prepared to intercept, the enemy quickly retreated. Only a few exchanges of fire occurred. This was partly because the Zeon forces prioritized the retrieval of Major Sinclair, but the presence of the Garda-class flying carrier approaching the base played a significant role. The Garda-class flying carrier approaching the base was the Audomla, belonging to the 8th Squadron under the direct command of Brigadier General Manov. The Audomla, a super-large aircraft carrier named after the primordial bull of Germanic mythology, emerged from the Ginunga Gap. Once the flagship of the Anti-Earth Federation forces, the Karabakh, it now serves under the 8th Squadron, led by Brigadier General Manov, a representative officer of the AEUG faction that collaborated with Karabakh. Shortly after the minor skirmish ended, Kelly was summoned by the base commander of the Central European Warzone base. "It seems we successfully repelled them. As expected, Zeon can't be trusted." As if forgetting that the disaster was caused by their own misjudgment, the base commander and other Federation military officials arrogantly analyzed the situation. "Hey, Captain, what about Brigadier General Manov? I told you both to report in." "Ah, his 8th Squadron has arrived, so he's briefing them." So the old man doesn't want to be bothered, huh? Honestly, if he hadn't picked up that unnecessary woman." "With all due respect, Commander." Kelly tried to protest, but the cold, heavy gaze of the base commander silenced him. That gaze not only stopped Kelly, but also everyone else in the room, creating an oppressive silence. An uncomfortable moment passed. Suddenly, the base commander tapped the desk with his middle finger, breaking the silence. "Captain, it seems the ground Zeon forces find Vice Foreign Minister Serrana Karn quite troublesome." His words were loaded with implication, and the way he interlaced his fingers on the desk exuded a subtle malice. "Commander, have you reported the Vice Foreign Minister's situation to the upper echelons? She truly cares about all of humanity." "Kelly, this is a decision from the top. They want to buy time until the Londo Bell team can deploy." The base commander smirked. "It's ironic, isn't it? Brigadier General Manov, who worked tirelessly to establish the Londo Bell team, genuinely supports and wants to protect Vice Foreign Minister Serrana, who advocates for peace. Meanwhile, the upper echelons, who were hesitant about forming Londo Bell, are now pushing to strengthen it based on unconfirmed reports of Shar reorganizing Neo-Zeon, and they're using Brigadier General Manov as a sacrificial lamb." As he spoke, the base commander stood up. "Captain, do you know why the Federation military, including myself, was hesitant about forming Londo Bell? No. We were afraid Londo Bell would become a second Titans." "What? Brigadier General Manov would never allow that." "True, he wouldn't. He's been a straightforward man since he served under me during the 1-year war. But organizations, once established, often slip from their founders' control. The lofty ideals they were founded on fade, and the focus shifts solely to maintaining the organization, just like the Earth Federation government." The base commander laughed self-deprecatingly and handed Kelly a document. "Captain Kelly Schneider, as the captain of the Ilnaid, you are to join Brigadier General Manov's 8th Squadron in an assault on the enemy stronghold in the Scandinavian peninsula. This is your orders." After glancing at the orders, Kelly exclaimed, "What? You're sending students back into battle? It's a miracle they made it this far, and now you've fought well enough. You're like the White Base. You're a formidable force, and even if they're students, they're still military personnel." The base commander patted Kelly on the shoulder. "We'll replenish you with double Zeta and Zeta units. If that's not enough, survive and grow stronger. That's how organizations work." With an expressionless face, the base commander left the room, followed by his entourage of high-ranking officers. "Looks like you're back on the fast track to promotion," one of the officers sneered as he left. Kelly immediately grabbed the officer by the collar. "Promotion? Go to hell!" At sunrise, the Ilnid set sail as if being driven out. The shadow it cast in the rising sun was pitifully small. On the bridge of the Ilnid, now officially commanded by Kelly, Adele and the key crew members had gathered. That's the overview of the operation. We're heading to the eastern edge of the Scandinavian peninsula, near the former Swedish territory of Gallivare, where the Neo-Zeon's HLV launch base is located. However, we can expect interception forces. The battle will likely take place well before we reach the base. As for reinforcements, we've received the double Zeta, and 5 Gundam Mark IIs. But frankly, the purpose of this operation is to deter Char, avoid unnecessary combat, and focus on survival. Even though the refugees were protected, we're being sent back to the front lines. At Captain Kelly's explanation, Senri slumped his shoulders in despair. As someone who originally aspired to be a civilian line pilot, Senri's disappointment was profound. But Adele felt the same. They had fought to survive, and as someone who lost his father in the 1-year war, the thought of continuing to fight was unbearable. That sentiment spilled out in his words. This is ridiculous. I never intended to become a soldier, and now I'm just a pawn for the higher-ups. We're rescue specialists, after all, Doug added, echoing Adele's complaint. Enough, you two. You can complain all you want, but we're military personnel now. We can't just do as we please, Raisa scolded them, but it did little to ease Adele and Doug's frustration. Are you okay with this, Raisa? Did we work this hard just to become convenient tools for them? This isn't what those who died would want. Well, Raisa stammered, unable to respond effectively. She, too, was struggling to accept the situation. Raisa wasn't the only one. Even Berner and Orvis from the military training program, and even the regular soldier Leopard couldn't fully accept it. I'm sorry, everyone. This is my fault. No, it's not like we're blaming you, Serrana. When Serrana apologized, Adele's words lost their force. Everyone knew that Serrana was the one suffering the most. A heavy atmosphere filled the room. Beep, 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 beep. Unfazed by the heavy mood, the sterile electronic sound signaled an incoming transmission. Claire hurriedly took her seat at the operator's station and opened the communication line. Captain Kelly, a Lieutenant Wiseman is requesting communication. Put him through. At Kelly's brief response, Claire connected the video feed to the monitor. On the monitor appeared an elderly pilot with a scarred eye, his cheerful voice a stark contrast to the somber conversation that had just taken place. Hey, Kelly. Long time no see. Look, Nip's here too. The 8th Squadron, 3rd Mobile Suit Team, reporting for duty. The elderly pilot, Lieutenant Wiseman, spoke familiarly to Captain Kelly. A new window opened, and a round-nosed lieutenant named Nip joined the conversation. Captain Kelly, it's been a while. You've really climbed the ranks since I last saw you. He flashed a bright smile. Idiot, you still haven't fixed that sarcastic streak, Nip. But hey, old man, you're still active? The Federation military must be pretty lenient. Ha ha ha, that brings back memories. You better not be making any girls cry again. This guy's got a real quick hand, you know. Lieutenant Wiseman glanced at the female crew members on the Il Nado through the monitor. Kelly, you've got some real beauties here, right, Nip? Lieutenant Nip laughed in agreement. Raisa and Claire exchanged glances. Wow, so that's the kind of person the captain is. I had the wrong impression. They nodded in agreement. However, neither of them minded being called beauties. Really, unexpected. I'll have to ask him for tips later. Totally. They don't teach this kind of stuff in class. This was Senri and Doug. But when Adele chimed in with, Yeah, right, Raisa shot him a glare. Hey, don't take it so seriously, old man, you're causing trouble. And so, the 8th Squadron, with the super-large flying carrier Audhumla as its flagship, joined the Il Nado. Brigadier General Manov boarded the Audhumla to take command. Despite still needing rest, he insisted on leading from the bridge, with a military doctor on standby. Brigadier General Manov sent a brief message to Vice Foreign Minister Serrana Karn. I'm sorry. For Serrana, that was enough. Chapter 15. Captain, a report from the reconnaissance plane of the 8th Squadron on patrol. Switching to the monitor. Claire's tense voice echoed through the bridge. The main monitor displayed the pilot of an early warning Nemo, but it quickly switched to an external view from the suit. "This is AWAC Nemo Unit 2. We've spotted an enemy mobile force moving south along the Scandinavian peninsula." The pilot's voice was filled with excitement. "The enemy mobile force appears to be transporting a super-large mobile armor." Despite the distortion caused by Minovsky particles, the image showed what looked like a Zanzibar-class cruiser carrying a massive mobile armor that was too large to fit in its hangar. "We'll move in for a closer look. This is— oh no! Ah!" Suddenly a Hygog burst out of the water, and the monitor screen turned to static as the image was lost. "Communication lost. They're probably— Contact Brigadier General Manoff's Audumla immediately. Prepare all mobile suits from ill need for launch." Kelly issued the orders and then contacted Captain Wiseman in his Gundam Mark II. "Old man, take care of the kids." "Leave it to me, I won't let them die. The 8th Squadron will take the lead in front with Ilnide's cadets." Ilnide encountered the Zeon forces moving south along the Scandinavian peninsula at the northern tip of the Jutland Peninsula near Linnaeus. Kelly had planned to engage them across the Skagerrak Strait, the border between Denmark and Norway. But the Zeon forces moved faster than expected and had already crossed the strait. The main monitor zoomed in on the massive Zeon fleet, which included a Zanzibar-class cruiser carrying a large mobile armor and 2 Gao assault carriers, all set against the backdrop of the winter North Sea. "Entering main cannon range in 3 minutes. All mobile suit teams ready for launch." The forward monitor of the Ilnid displayed an enlarged image of the Zanzibar-class cruiser, now clearly visible. "All right, launch the mobile suit teams." At Kelly's command, Adele's Double Zeta Gundam and Raisa's Zeta Gundam launched from Ilniad. They were followed by Burner, Orvis, Doug, Leopard, and Senri in their Gundam Mark IIs, with Serrana's Zeta Gundam being the last to launch from the catapult deck. Each mobile suit landed on the snowy plain and prepared for combat. From the Audumla, Captain Wiseman and his team of Gundam Mark IIs and Nemos also launched. Wiseman, Nip, Greg, and Heinz' squad will take the lead in front of Ilnide. Imai's squad will provide direct cover. On the bridge of the Audhumla, Brigadier General Manov's voice boomed with such intensity that the waiting medic grew concerned. As mobile suits launched from each ship, the Zeon forces also deployed their Stukas and Gaplants from the Gao carriers, while the Zanzibar lowered the massive mobile armor it had been carrying to the ground. "It's huge," Adele muttered as he saw the massive machine hover toward them. He quickly realized it was a super-large mobile suit. The sight of the giant machine plowing through the snow, kicking up clouds of powder, was awe-inspiring. Despite its size, Adele's first impression was that it bore a resemblance to Sinclair's beloved Breda. "Be careful, that's the O2, a super-large mobile suit designed for fortress assaults," Serrana warned Adele over the comms. "Its firepower is at least 5 times that of a normal mobile suit, but there's a way to fight it. Cover me, please." Serrana smiled faintly and transformed her Zeta Gundam into Wave Rider mode, charging straight at the O2. "Wait, Serrana!" Adele tried to follow, but by then they were already in the combat zone. A Stuka approached, firing its beam rifle. "Tch!" Adele calmly aimed and pulled the trigger. The Stuka was easily destroyed by the Double Zeta's beam, exploding in a flash. "Damn it! Serrana's out there!" Before Adele could finish, another Stuka emerged from the smoke, firing its beam rifle. "Damn it!" Adele accelerated the Double Zeta, firing his beam rifle as he passed, but the shot missed. He realized he had gotten overconfident from his earlier success. Now they were locked in a shooting match. "You said to cover you, but this is ridiculous." The enemy, of course, didn't care. Raisa felt irritated as she watched Serrana and Adele chatting over the comms. "Honestly, calling the comms skin contact is just gross," she muttered to herself. As she grumbled, Serrana transformed her Zeta into Wave Rider mode and charged into the enemy lines. "Oh, come on!" Raisa tried to follow, transforming her Zeta as well, but she noticed a squadron of Gaplants in flight mode approaching from above. Doug and Senri's Mark IIs, providing cover for Ilnid, were struggling against them. Raisa accelerated her Zeta and climbed to intercept the Gaplants. "Why am I even getting so worked up about this?" she scolded herself, firing her beam gun at the Gaplants. The aerial combat training she had undergone in the Tangram was paying off. She wasn't about to lose. Meanwhile, Sinclair's the O2 was tearing through the Autumla's forces. The O2 was a force to be reckoned with, its power overwhelming. It was the successor to the O, a heavy mobile suit designed by Paptimus Sirocco of the Jupiter fleet, known for its invincibility. While the Breda was a mass-produced version of the O, the O2 was a redesigned fortress assault unit with heavy weaponry. Many Zeon engineers fleeing the war crimes trials after the One-Year War had joined the Jupiter fleet and contributed to the development of Sirocco's mobile suits. After Sirocco's death, they returned to Zeon, bringing their expertise with them. The O2, though costly and produced in limited numbers, had been deployed primarily on the African front, where it had inflicted heavy losses on the Federation forces. In this battle alone, it had already destroyed 4 mobile suits, including Gundam Mark IIs and Nemos. "That thing's a monster!" Brigadier General Manoff shouted on the bridge of the Odumla. The O2 led the charge, breaking through their formations with its overwhelming firepower, while the accompanying Stuka units mopped up any remaining Gundam Mark IIs and Nemos. "Lieutenant Gregg, his Gundam Mark II has been destroyed." "Damn it!" Manov was at a loss. Just as he was sweating over what to do, the operator shouted with joy. The O2 has stopped. It's the Zeta Gundam. Vice Foreign Minister Serrana Khan has engaged it. The monitor showed the Zeta Gundam clinging to the side of the O2. Despite being only half its size, the Zeta had completely immobilized the O2. "Wiseman and Nip, cut off the Stuka units from the O2, Manoff barked at the communications officer. But then the operator cried out in alarm. "New enemy forces detected! Bearing 010, distance 20,000. How many? 1 Zanzibar-class cruiser. No other ships detected. Send Imai and Haina's squad to intercept. The Audhumla will focus on the main enemy force, the O2's unit." "Oh, this is so annoying," Sinclair growled as the Zeta Gundam clung to the O2. The smaller Zeta darted around, attacking from all sides. While it hadn't landed a decisive blow, the O2 was effectively immobilized, threatening to derail the entire operation. In fact, the tide of the battle had already turned. With the O2 stalled, the Stuka units were being picked off one by one. "Sinclair, can you hear me? It's me, Serrana." During another exchange of beam saber strikes, Serrana's voice suddenly came through. "What? Serrana Karn is piloting a Gundam?" Sinclair's blood boiled at the thought of a Zeon officer betraying their cause. A Gundam? Fitting for a traitor like you. I'll bury you and that cursed machine here and now. Wait, Sinclair, listen to me." Ignoring her, Sinclair swung his beam saber, but Serrana parried the blow. "Sinclair, do you even understand what Char is really planning?" Sinclair tried to strike again, but Serrana dodged. "I don't care what you traitors have to say. The Earth Federation government is corrupt. It deserves to be overthrown. And what about the billions of innocent people who will suffer? Is that any better than Hitler or Stalin? Why not seek a path of coexistence? Shut up. You always talk big, but you never act. We fought together before, as part of the Axis moderate faction alongside my father, Maharaja Karn. I didn't side with Maharaja Karn in that conflict. I followed Captain Char. Blind loyalty, says the sister of Haman Karn. Why won't you understand?" As Serrana shouted, Sinclair disengaged the O2 from the Zeta. He noticed the double Zeta and Zeta approaching from the Ilneed's defensive line. The Gaplant units must have been wiped out. Looking around, he realized the battle was turning against them, and the retreat order had already been given. Sinclair regretted losing his composure and failing to see the bigger picture. Raisa and Adele rushed to Serrana's side. From an outsider's perspective, Serrana's Zeta Gundam appeared to stand composed and dignified before the massive O2. Despite having just engaged in intense combat, the Zeta Gundam exuded an air of elegance and grace. It was as if it were a hero standing against a monstrous foe, something that Raisa, piloting the same type of Zeta Gundam, could never hope to emulate. "Serrana, are you all right?" Adele called out, his voice tinged with concern. Raisa felt a sharp pang in her chest. Seems like we've got company. I'll retreat for now. But this isn't over. We'll meet again. And next time, it'll be your end. Sinclair spat out what could only be described as a bitter parting remark as he pulled back the O2. A thick cloud of snow rose into the air, staining the freezing atmosphere white. Adele tried to aim his beam rifle at the retreating the O2, but Serrana extended the Zeta's arm to stop him. Sinclair, you should know better, and yet… Serrana's faint voice reached Raisa's ears, and she felt it wasn't the right time to speak up. Serrana, that the O2, it's Sinclair, isn't it? Adele asked, having deduced the pilot's identity after being stopped from firing. Raisa couldn't help but feel a bit exasperated at Adele's bluntness, though it was also one of his endearing qualities. Adele, it's fine, Raisa said. Though they were close enough to communicate via radio, she reached out and placed the Zeta's hand on Adele's double Zeta's shoulder, opening a direct contact link. But aren't you curious, Raisa? Some things are better left unasked. It's just not polite to pry. Thank you, Raisa, Serrana said with a sad smile. More importantly, I'm worried about the Adumla unit that went to intercept the diversionary force, Serrana added. There had been chatter about losing contact with them earlier. They've been out of contact for a while now, huh? What is that? Adele, 5 o'clock? Raisa pointed, and there, towering before them, was an enormous mobile armor. It was so massive that it distorted their sense of scale, appearing as large as the mountains behind it. Even the O2 paled in comparison, looking like a child next to it. The silhouette, stark against the snowy mountains, looked almost demonic. It's huge, a real monster. So this is why we lost contact with the diversionary force. That's the Big Zam, a heavy mobile armor designed for fortress assaults. I can't believe they've mass-produced it. For Serrana, the Big Zam held deep personal significance. The Karn family had 3 sisters, and the eldest, Marlene, had been a concubine of Vice Admiral Dazel Zabi. Marlene had become his concubine when Serrana was just 4 years old, and as a child, Serrana hadn't understood what that meant or why it had happened. But as she grew older, she came to understand Marlene's feelings. She had even confided in Haman about it once, though the memory of Haman's sad smile lingered more strongly. Marlene wasn't just some mistress, as the world might call her. Dazel Zabi, known for being a devoted husband, hadn't taken her by force. He had merely arranged things to preserve Marlene's dignity. Both her father and Haman had misunderstood. Marlene had lived a life of unwavering love, but she had also been frail. Just before the collapse of the Zabi family, knowing her body wouldn't hold out much longer, she had fled the Earth sphere to honor Dazel's wishes. The Big Zam was the mobile armor that Dazel had piloted in his final battle, a man worthy of Marlene's love and a fitting end to his life. Pika! A blinding light streaked across the silver-white landscape. A single flash. That was the most accurate way to describe it. That's a megaparticle cannon barrage. If it's coming from that direction, it must be targeting the Central European base? Raisa muttered, her eyes wide with shock. With that kind of firepower, they're done for. Damn it, they've brought something monstrous here. This must be the first step in Char's Earth purge. General Detour would definitely do something like this. Serrana couldn't forgive Char or Detour. Using the Big Zam in this way felt like a desecration of her sister's memory. After their mother, Rachel, passed away at a young age, Marlene had been both a sister and a mother to Serrana. All Serrana had were memories of being loved by her. That's why she had to protect Marlene's honor. We have to destroy it before it causes any more damage. Serrana transformed the Zeta into Wave Rider mode and charged toward the Big Zam at full speed. Adele and Raisa followed closely behind. Chapter 16. Could it be that this was a decoy? Upon discovering the Big Zam, Kelly realized that his judgment had been mistaken. Facing a large force led by the overwhelmingly powerful the O2, it was only natural to assume that it was Zeon's decisive weapon. However, Zeon had another card up their sleeve: the Big Zam. From the Big Zam, a massive flash of light shot straight out. Central Base, please respond. Central Base, respond. Claire continued to call out desperately, but there was no response. From the headphones, only the irritating interference noise of Minovsky particles could be heard. Claire, contact Audumla. The Ilnid will head to stop the Big Zam. Major General Manov of the Audumla would likely come as well. No matter what, that thing had to be stopped. It was that kind of weapon. Dator smiled faintly, satisfied with the Big Zam's performance. They said it would be the dawn of the Big Zam's mass production, and they were right. The trail left by the megaparticle cannon had gouged out the snowy plain, stretching straight toward the Federation's European central base. The central base had lost most of its functionality. Ha 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 ha! He couldn't help but laugh out loud. From the Big Zam, which was nearly 60 meters in height, the ground below looked like a distant world. Lord Dator. Sinclair's the O2 slid in beside the Big Zam. It had been engaged in a duel with the Zeta, but it appeared undamaged. The remaining Stuka units were also regrouping around the Big Zam. Sinclair, it seems you couldn't take down that Pegasus after all. My apologies, sir. The Big Zam's detection monitor caught sight of the Ilnid and its mobile suit squadron, which Sinclair had failed to shoot down, approaching. They're coming. Yes, without a doubt, Serrana Karn will be dealt with by my own hands. With that declaration, Sinclair turned his the O2 toward the pursuing Ilnid forces. Watching him go, Dator began to advance the Big Zam along the path of the megaparticle cannon's blast, heading toward the city of Hamburg. That's Sinclair, obsessing over Serrana Karn alone. In the end, he was just a frontline commander, Dator thought dismissively. Serrana, this time I won't let you escape. Survivors of the 31st Descent Battalion, follow me. Charge at that white base knockoff ahead. Yes, sir. In response to Sinclair's command, Lieutenant Geisen and the rest of the 31st Descent Battalion gave short replies. Major, fulfill your ambition. We'll take down the white base knockoff. Lieutenant Meyer, understanding Sinclair's determination to defeat Serrana, added in a soft, feminine tone. This is bad. If we waste time here, Detoyer's Big Zam will directly hit the city. Adele felt anxious as Sinclair's the O2 and the Stuka units charged forward. I'll handle this. While I keep Sinclair's forces occupied, you two go ahead. But with just one Zeta. Before Adele could finish, Serrana slid the Zeta in front of the O2. Serrana Khan! With Sinclair's roar, the O2 faced off against the Zeta. The accompanying Stuka units slipped past the O2, heading toward the Ilnado. The Ilnid's Gundam Mark II units intercepted the Stukas. We'll protect the Ilnado. You two hurry to the Big Zam. I can do it too. Trust me, Adele. Raisa, go. Just go, Adele Arishem. If anything happens to Raisa, I won't forgive you. Senri, Doug, Orvis, and even Berner urged Adele on while firing beams at the Stukas. Leave it to us, Adele. Take care of Serrana. Raisa made up her mind. Thank you, Raisa. With that, Serrana tuned her personal comms to Raisa's frequency. Raisa, get along with Adele, okay? Huh? Raisa felt her face turn red. She wanted to say something to Serrana, but before she could, Serrana's battle cry, Come on, Sinclair, left her speechless. Raisa, let's go! Responding to Adele's call, Raisa transformed the Zeta into Wave Rider mode and headed toward the Big Zam. Adele also transformed the double Zeta into G-Fortress mode, forming a formation with the Zeta. Seeing that Adele and Raisa were heading toward the Big Zam, Serrana tried to force her way into close combat with Sinclair's the O2. Against a large mobile suit like the O2, the only option was to use mobility to get in close and engage in melee combat. Firing 2 shots from her beam rifle to distract, she closed the distance. Why can't you understand? Purging Earth's people won't change anything. It will only create new hatred and sorrow. Shut up. I don't want to hear your pretty words after killing my father. How dare you? Clang! The Zeta Gundam, having closed the distance, collided with the O2, the sound of their armor crumpling echoing loudly. But more shocking than the noise was Sinclair's words. Serrana, who had thought the conflict was over ideological differences between moderates and hardliners, was stunned by Sinclair's raw emotion. This was more visceral and real than any talk of Earth's purge. Sinclair's father had been a high-ranking official in the Zeon hardliner faction. Not aligned with Axis, he had remained on Side 3 after the end of the 1-year war, supporting the remnants of the Zeon military. After Axis's return to the Earth sphere, he joined Axis, becoming a central figure in the remnants of the Zeon military, particularly the Zabi faction. Naturally, his high status gave him significant influence among the hardliners, but that very status led to his assassination. Sinclair believed the moderates were behind his father's death, and this battle was his revenge. But even that motive was based on a misunderstanding. "You're wrong. It's a misunderstanding. Your father lost in a factional struggle among the hardliners." Shouting, Serrana closed the distance with the O2, throwing away her beam rifle and drawing her beam saber. Even among the hardliners, Sinclair's father, who had been loyal to the Zabi family, and the Char faction, which had no need for the Zabis, were opposed. That was why the Char faction, in their haste, had him assassinated. "How dare you? I fought alongside Captain Char on both Ambrosia and Axis. How dare you blame Char? It's not Char's doing, it's those who support him. It's the same thing. Politics isn't driven by one person's will alone." Sinclair also drew a beam saber from the O2's hidden arm and engaged. The beam sabers clashed repeatedly, sending sparks flying. "Haman, my sister, dreamed of Zeon's revival as Lady Minerva's guardian. But Char doesn't need the Zabis. He doesn't even need Side 3 or the Zeon Principality. They're just in the way. Captain Char is the legacy of Zeon Dekun. He is Zeon itself. He wouldn't kill my father, who worked tirelessly for Zeon's revival." "It's true, I'm not lying." "Enough. Shut up, shut up, shut up." The O2 struck the Zeta Gundam's face with its large beam rifle. Crash! The Zeta Gundam was sent flying by the unexpected blow. "What? Ah!" As Serrana screamed, the beam saber from the hidden arm, which had been clashing with hers, closed in on the Zeta Gundam's cockpit. Sizzle. The sound of melting metal could be heard. "Did I get you?" Seeing the beam saber deeply embedded, Sinclair was convinced of his victory, but even as the cockpit melted, the Zeta Gundam raised its right arm. "What?" The grenade launcher equipped on the Zeta Gundam's right arm fired in slow motion. Boom. The two mobile suits, locked in an embrace, exploded quietly and ceased to function. The flames illuminated the snowy plain in red. Chapter 17. The Big Zam, by its very nature as a mobile armor designed for fortress assaults, was undeniably slow in ground-based offensive operations. This allowed Adele and Raisa to catch up and even attempt a pincer attack. However, the firepower mounted on the Big Zam was overwhelming. Its small mega-particle cannons, capable of covering all directions, kept Adele and Raisa at bay, preventing them from closing in. The Big Zam had an awkward, almost comical design, a triangular pyramid with two legs protruding from it. Adele and Raisa targeted those legs, circling around and firing their beam rifles. However, if they strayed even slightly too far, the anti-beam coating on the Big Zam would completely deflect their attacks. "Adele, to the right!" "I know." The Big Zam's small mega-particle cannons relentlessly pursued the double Zeta, firing one after another. The beams spread out like a curtain of light, beautiful yet terrifying. "Raisa, let's go next." "Right." While dodging the wave of attacks from the mega-particle cannons, Adele felt a sense of gratitude that Raisa was coordinating with him. If fighting together meant protecting the woman he had come to love, then that alone was enough reason to keep fighting. But even as Adele steeled his resolve, the Big Zam's mega-particle cannons flashed, targeting both Adele and Raisa simultaneously. "We won't let you carry out Char's plan to purge Earth, Dator," Raisa shouted, dodging the mega-particle cannons and trying to rally herself. "Purge Earth? Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. I fight for myself." To Adele's surprise, Dator, the pilot of the Big Zam, responded. But what shocked Adele more than the response itself was its content. A high-ranking Zeon general had outright dismissed the idea of purging Earth as nonsense. "Dator, if you think purging Earth is meaningless, then why are you fighting here?" "Didn't I say it? I fight for myself." And then it hit him. When Serrana was captured at the Central European base, Sinclair had been lounging around comfortably. This was proof that there had always been a hidden, deep connection between high-ranking the Federation officials and General de Tour. In the end, it was nothing more than a cozy relationship born out of mutual self-interest. Adele's blood boiled. "Are you saying you fight solely for your own personal gain? You Federation pilots don't know anything. Answer me, de Tour. I said you're in the way." The big Zam's megaparticle cannons intensified their assault. "Personal gain? What's wrong with that? What else is there?" De Tour, perhaps frustrated by his inability to take down the two Gundams, began to lose his composure. "That's right. Purging Earth. The new type theory. None of that matters. The Earth Federation government is corrupt? Ha! They wouldn't want to hear that from the likes of us. Zeon and the Federation are the same. In the end, we're all just humans. Is Zeon different?" Raisa, unable to stomach de Tour's disgusting rant, raised her voice. She fired her beam rifle, but the beams scattered harmlessly against the big Zam's armor. "What do you kids know?" de Tour screamed. "Ha! Do you have any idea how much effort I've put into maintaining the European front? It's not just about military strategy, you brats. It's about everything. Administration, governance of the territories I control. Who has suffered? Who has been persecuted? Race? Religion? Ridiculous. Yes, it's all ridiculous. I've dominated it all for my own gain. Do you have any idea what that takes? Of course not. Do you think I care?" Adele extended the Double Zeta's left arm and fired a grenade. Against the big Zam's anti-beam coating, the Double Zeta's only effective weapons were grenades and beam sabers. Two warheads arced through the air. One missed, but the other struck the big Zam's left leg directly. Boom! The explosion caused the big Zam to stagger, but while the armor was torn, the left leg remained intact. "Damn you, brat!" The big Zam's back opened, revealing countless small missile launchers. "This is how I've maintained peace and order in my territories, for my own gain. But that brat Char wants to abandon Earth." Whoosh! 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 A barrage of small missiles was unleashed. "Char says that foolish humans have no right to pollute Earth, so he wants to purge it. Do you understand, you brats? Char is saying that those who can't become new types should die. Boom! 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 Ah! Kya!" Countless explosions surrounded Adele and Raisa. Though they avoided direct hits, the blast waves tore off the Double Zeta's beam rifle along with its right arm. Rocks slammed into the armor, denting it and destroying several subcameras. The screen's image processing deteriorated, and the visuals became distorted. Raisa's Zeta also appeared to have suffered similar damage, its shield blown away. The snowfield was swept away by the explosions, and the melted snow flowed into the exposed black soil, creating muddy puddles. De Tour, reveling in the overwhelming power of the big Zam, continued to fire the megaparticle cannons while ranting. "New types? They're just ordinary people. That's why I'll destroy this city. Before Char can destroy it with his ridiculous ideals, I'll destroy this city, this Earth, for my own gain." You understand all that, and yet that's what it means to be an adult. Adele couldn't follow de Tour's twisted logic, but he knew it was madness. For such reasons, cities were destroyed and people died. Even a child could understand how wrong that was. The big Zam's megaparticle cannons paused for a moment. "Now!" With a shout, Adele moved the Double Zeta into the blind spot of the cannons. But just as he thought he had an opening, a heavy blow struck him. Crash! "Get out of the way, you Gundams!" The big Zam kicked the Double Zeta. Bam! The impact sent the Double Zeta flying. Inside the cockpit, the monitors cracked. The linear seat shook violently, and the seatbelt tightened around Adele's body. He gritted his teeth against the shock, but his molars shattered, filling his mouth with the taste of blood. "Adele!" Raisa screamed, her voice almost a wail. The Double Zeta, as if responding to her cry, tried to right itself even as it tumbled. On a small monitor, Adele spat out the shattered pieces of his teeth. But Adele's eyes were not dead. He could still fight. Raisa felt it. A sense of relief. The man she had come to love was mentally tougher than she had imagined. "Raisa, let's finish this in one go." With those words, Raisa understood what Adele was planning. The Big Zam's left leg, damaged by the grenade, was sparking. The anti-beam coating was no longer effective. Adele was telling her to target it. Amid the rain of megaparticle cannon fire, the double Zeta and the Zeta lined up and charged, firing their beam rifles. With Adele behind her, Raisa felt a sense of security, and so the Zeta's beam found its mark. Boom! The beam struck, and the Big Zam, losing support from its left leg, began to tilt and fall. You brats! Inside the falling Big Zam, Dator realized he had lost. But as he looked past the Gundams, he saw the city of Hamburg. I won't go down alone! He aimed the Big Zam's large megaparticle cannon at the city. As the Big Zam's left leg was destroyed, Raisa pushed the Zeta's verniers to their limit, darting to the right. I'll leave it to you. The Big Zam's large megaparticle cannon began charging even as it fell. But Adele's double Zeta had also been charging its energy, and it finished first. High mega cannon! The energy concentrated in the double Zeta's head erupted in a flash, piercing through the Big Zam. Boom! The beam of light shot through the Big Zam and into the dark, cloudy sky, dispersing the heavy clouds and revealing a clear blue sky. A blue, cloudless sky. The warm sunlight shone down on the snow-covered Jutland Peninsula. In the HLV awaiting launch, Lieutenant Colonel Newman saw the beam of light piercing the sky. Though he didn't know the details, he felt that it marked the end of General Dator. Dator had been a good superior. He had built strong connections with the Federation, lining his own pockets in the process. But during Neo-Zeon's Earth invasion, he had quickly secured the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean coasts. Even after the death of Vice Commander Haman, he had maintained the front lines despite supply shortages. As a military leader, he was highly capable, and as a politician, he had skillfully maintained peace in occupied territories. In the end, he had single-handedly attacked the Federation's Central European base in the Big Zam, a machine too large to be sent to space, as a diversion to allow his comrades to launch their HLV. That superior officer was now dead. The HLV trembled as its engines reached critical power. Glory to Zeon once more! Newman saluted no one in particular as the HLV's engines roared and the G-forces pressed down on him. Lieutenant Colonel Newman's fight as a Zeon soldier was far from over. Thank you, Adele. It's from all of us, huh? We all know you bought it yourself, Adele. Senri and Orvis teased, nudging each other and giggling. It's okay, Adele, I understand. By the way, what about Instructor Kelly and Claire? Well, that's the thing. Turns out the instructor was exactly the kind of person Captain Wiseman said he was. Totally. When we asked him about it, he completely played dumb, Adele said, rubbing his temples while Senri grumbled under his breath, indirectly filling her in on their recent situation. Wait, you don't mean… Exactly. They're already married. And the person he married is… Okay, Orvis, I think I can guess. Raisa sighed deeply. By the way, the place we're heading to is their love nest, Quaker added with a hearty laugh. It was all a bit overwhelming. Well, well, everyone, you made it. Come on in, let's drink and have a great time. Instructor Kelly greeted them with a flustered, bustling energy as soon as they opened the door to the house. Honestly, this guy… There's no point in hiding anything now, Claire said, rubbing her slightly swollen belly and laughing at her husband's flustered state. This guy too? Sigh. Raisa glanced at Adele. Would she ever call someone like that her own? All right, don't just stand there. Come inside. Take a look at the table. This is our family's specialty. This fish. My husband caught it himself, Claire said, happily arranging the dishes. The fun times had begun. At the same time, in a dark corner of space, a fleet centered around the crimson battleship Rulula was assembling. Soldiers of Neo-Zeon, the time has come to demonstrate our ideals through force. Our fleet will now launch an attack on Fifth Luna. This marks the beginning of a great new era for the survival of humanity itself. As Char Aznabul's speech concluded, the engines of the ships roared to life, and the fleet began its advance. Lieutenant Commander Newman, having listened to the speech, turned his gaze to Earth below, silently saluting his former superior, General Dator, before straightening the collar of his new normal suit. A new battle was about to begin. Back at the house, stories from the Ilnid era were being shared. Even though it had only been a year ago, it felt like a distant memory. The hardships, the near-death experiences, they were now just topics for casual conversation over drinks. The pace of the drinking naturally picked up. Raisa stepped out onto the terrace to cool her flushed body. Her cheeks were slightly warm and tinged with red. Leaning against a white pillar, she let the night breeze wash over her. The wind felt refreshing. Looking up at the sky, she saw a sea of stars. If only Serrana were here, she murmured to herself. In the final battle, Serrana's Zeta Gundam had clashed with Sinclair's The O2, resulting in a mutual defeat. However, subsequent investigations revealed footprints in the snow leading away from the Zeta's cockpit. Serrana's whereabouts remained unknown. But she was alive. Perhaps she was still out there, trying to stop Char's Earth purge. As Raisa gazed at the cloudless, starry sky, she felt a strange certainty about that thought. "Raisa!" Startled by the voice, she turned to see Adele standing there. She had been so lost in thought about Serrana that she hadn't noticed Adele coming out to the terrace. Adele's expression was different from usual. He seemed tense. "Hey, He was searching for the right words, but they seemed to elude him. His flushed cheeks weren't just from the alcohol. "Hey, He repeated himself, stuck in the same spot. "It's okay, Adele. I know what you want to say, so just say it. My answer has already been decided." The end.